Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Thanks for being here. Hope everybody's dealing with COVID and the lockdown okay. So spiritual tourism. I sent that out to you guys. There are definitely at least two ways of looking at that. One is, that we're on this journey of finding out who we are. That would be the actual tourism. But the other way that I really implied it, and this doesn't have any negative connotation to it, but the other way that I implied this is to the degree of seriousness that we're all on the path, quote unquote, which is why I put at the bottom of it, is this reality? I was thinking of Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody. Is this reality or is this just a fantasy? And I wanted to make it, is it your reality or your fantasy? And my reality and my fantasy. How serious are we at doing this work? That was really the meaning of that message. And I wanted to look at that a little bit this morning, just to see where everybody's at. And I'm not asking for feedback from you guys of how serious you are or not. Just you yourself can be aware, and this isn't just about these sessions, it's whatever you're doing in your life that is on your path to finding out who you are, to finding peace, lasting peace in your life. COVID, this lockdown is a really wonderful time to look at it. I've actually gotten to enjoy us being rather locked down. I'm spending a lot more time on my meditation. I'm spending more time on doing these Zoom sessions. I'm studying, going back to some of my old teachers and studying more. I've used it to, I don't even use it, I just enjoy it. So I wake up in the morning and I'm more on purpose than I've been before in quite a while. So I want to put that out to you just as a rhetorical question. Where are you at? Are you taking advantage? Now, I know some people are still working as much as they can, but we certainly can't socialize the way we used to. Life has certainly changed right now. So the question is how are you using this time? Are you self-reflecting more? Are you doing the things that I think everybody who's here really has the desire? So just check in and see how much of your day during this lockdown time are we taking to be calm, going inward instead of outward? COVID's wonderful for eliminating us as going outward because, wow, we're right here. So that's my question to you guys. Again, if you want to comment about it, it's fine, but I'm not obliging you to comment about it. But that's why I put this up and I titled this as, are you a spiritual tourist? I've been in many times in my life. I think I would qualify as a spiritual tourist. And at the same time, we're never not, anybody who's at this stage that everybody here is, even if we feel like we're just being spiritual tourists, we're still on the path. We're still doing the work. And everything we do is spiritual. We just only see it in a dualistic, materialistic way. So if anybody wants to share about that, you're welcome to. And if you don't want to, we'll just keep moving along.
I think okay, go ahead then. Go ahead.
Okay, I get started first. Hi everybody. For me, for this, perhaps I would just call out everybody's name to get a sense of connection. Hi Guy, hi team, hi
Hello.
Anne, hi Lynn, and hi T and Alien. I'm gonna change
Hi.
my name into Tien Zenda. I've introduced this once, but because there's only 2 Vietnamese in the room, so probably only 2 of you understand what Zenda means when I reverse it into Zaden.
3 in the room, 3 in the room.
Oh,
Don't forget yourself. Don't forget yourself.
yeah, 3 in the room. I also have really wonderful time being at home. And actually, I feel like 2 years ago when I quit my job to start building something on my own, it felt like a disruption, and it was like going against the mainstream. But I was never prepared for today to see a lockdown 2 years later since I quit. And I have already started to build my very rich inner life by myself. And therefore, with this lockdown, it just gives me a wonderful chance to do what I really want to do without much interaction without receiving a lot of energy. And yeah, because I'm just in general a very extrovert person. So when I'm out, I feel like I just have to give a lot of energy out. And with this lockdown, I can save a lot of energy by just talking online. Like I don't have to, go out and do a lot. Just sitting here and with being still in the chair and talk with people. So definitely, I think this lockdown for me is more like an opportunity rather than being like a bad situation that I have to adjust to. And I'm thankful to myself for having done things that other people have considered it to be abnormal. And today I found myself to be super normal, and that doesn't mean that I don't experience depression or like on the negative scale of the emotions, because I'm still working, and I still get frustration with things that I can't get done, and I don't know how to figure it out. But for me, being in the lockdown is just like a normal day, and I still get my food and all those stuff. So yeah, I feel like it's just a new normal, and I enjoy it in some way. And I'm not really afraid of going forward to the normal that we used to have before, because I think it's just a new way of living, and I would be flexible to both ways of living.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. There's a very important thing that is very easy to overlook. And it's a bit of the ego arrogance coming in, really, is this idea that if we return to who we really are, if we find that, if we, what some would call awaken, enlighten, whatever it is, it doesn't mean that our personality no longer exists. We don't flush the dualistic idea of ourself. We don't flush that down the toilet. It's still with us. We understand, we see our true nature, but we still all have habits. We still have characteristics that belong to the body mind, right? They don't just disappear. There's this mysticism of especially in the New Age era, that as soon as you wake up, then everything else disappears. And I'm just this perfect human being, and I'm in touch with awareness, and I know who I am, and my whole life will be perfect. It's not that. What we're doing, the work of non-dualism, the work of waking up, is not to remove us from the dualistic world that we've taken for granted as being real for all of our lives. It's so that we can navigate it with our real compass, right? Which is our awareness, so that we navigate the world better. Because we're stuck here. As long as this gross, remember last time, the gross and the subtle body and the causal body, as long as it's here, it's going to experience the world. And our behaviors are still here. Our attitudes are still here. Our habits are still here. but we're not limited to them anymore. And we don't suffer from them so much anymore because we are aware that that's really not who we are. And in that process of being aware, we navigate life much better. We recognize our characteristics, our attributes, our opinions, our beliefs. We recognize our limited self and just laugh at it and say, oh, there I am. But we're not guided by it anymore. We're guided by that awareness. So things will gradually fall away. But you know, if Tien, she said, I'm very extroverted. She's not going to stop being an extrovert just because she's awake. You know? But she deals with it better. You know, extroverts will interact with the world differently than they did before, even though they're still an extrovert. What happens is their outer experience may not change, but I suggest to you that it will change. But what happens is that we're aware now. So we don't let the things that would bother us as an extrovert or as an introvert like me, they just fall off. They go through us. It's like what we talk about with thoughts. You know, thoughts really aren't even ours. I use the description of thoughts are like you're sitting in your house with a big window open and you can see the thoughts passing by. And you say, oh, I like that thought. And you grab it, stick it in your head and you say, I have this thought. It's not just be aware of your thoughts, be aware of where you're at in your life. Just that way is that these characteristics are part of the not you. They are the tool. Every characteristic that we have, every behavior that we see in a negative way can also be used. There's also a positive side to it, as in the dualistic world. You know, anything we consider our negative, there's a corresponding positive to it. There's an old saying I learned many, many years ago, that behind your greatest weakness is your greatest strength. And I find that to be very true. You know, if what we beat ourselves up with, if we embrace it, if we don't judge it, and we just be with it, and we go deeper and deeper and deeper into that, observing not with the mind, but just with stillness and quietness, we may see the beauty of that and the power of that, and free ourselves then to use it for what we would call a positive way. We just take the spin off it and we say, this is this power that I have, and we turn the negative into a positive. So again, the negative doesn't disappear. We just become aware of it in a different way. There's some kind of a static background noise. Do you guys hear it, or is it just me? Every once in a while, there's like,
Yeah, we do, guys.
I don't know if it's my mic.
Just unmute. Do you think that it was less noisy?
Let's see now if it changes. No, it's still there. I'm going to mute myself for a second. I don't know what. Okay, well, we'll live with it, I guess. Is it bad for you guys, or just a little?
No, it's not too bad. So at least
No, it's
for me.
okay. Yeah.
Anything from my side?
I don't know where it's coming from. There may be a connection on my end it's only there when you don't want to figure, when you want to find out where it is. That's like, okay, so anybody else?
Can I just add on
Yes.
a layer into this? Actually, I have beaten up myself for, I think, more than a year, until somehow Yi knocked me on the internet. I think before that, I've been, of course, that I got, it was so hard for me to live awakened life with my super loud personality. I was kind of coming into the so when I went on a retreat, my story was like I'm extremely extrovert and super loud, and you know, like I'm really invasive to my friend's face. I always loud and energetic, and then I got hit because of a professional block. I felt really hard from my professional development, and then I went on a retreat, and from there I completely shut my mouth off. I completely changed into a new person, and for a year my friend could not understand why I was like that, and they went for different meditation seniors to ask why I was like that, but inside of me I was trying so hard to figure out, to accept the opposite, the seemingly opposite traits of a meditative person and a super loud person. Then luckily I met a couple of say people, but in different, not in a kind of a spiritual, say had a depth in spiritual pursuits like me, but some friends that have some level of spiritual knowledge, and slowly they kind of I felt like they pull me toward their world, and then I kind of ignore some of the teaching in my world, and then that's how I started to come out again as a loud person. Yeah, but somehow I kind of work myself through and accept that I am loud and I am never gonna be quiet person, except for meditation and you know, sometime before and after, like the quiet down, high and low dual existence. But that's very nice of Guy to always remind me that even when we awaken, we are still very much in the same body, and that our body is probably governed by a lot more than we think. We have the control over it, and so it's like the predisposition of a person. So that's very nice reminder, and today I hear it after I have overcome the challenge by myself. And yeah, anyway, if you were to knock me earlier and have told me, then probably I didn't have to work on myself that hard. Thank you.
Everything has its time. Would you like to be able to use your extroverted, in-your-face mannerism effectively, rather than just always being out there?
Definitely, I know that there is, I mean, everything happens for a reason. So definitely my trait of being super energetic would mean something to some people, and that's why I'm trying to write about in my Facebook profile. That is, if you're saying that you are a yoga teacher, it doesn't mean that you look like a certain way, you look super calm and nice and chill. I'm not. I am absolutely not a chill person. I'm super energetic and I'm fun and warm and I'm crazy. Like, if you're looking for that yoga teacher, then that's not me. And if you keep marketing that kind of yoga teacher image, then it's going to be a big trouble for those people who are energetic and think that yoga is not for them. And because I have come out to be so me, I tell my gymmer friends and all those super energetic who are doing other super energetic forms of physical exercise, to tell them that, hey, you can actually do yoga and meditation and not give up on your energetic exercise and not giving up on being a dynamic in the world. But somehow a lot of people who come into this world, they project this idea of being super calm and meditative, and some people who are energetic perceive them to be super boring and they can never do that. So me, to find myself today being authentic this way would be a would provide a gateway for some people to be interested in yoga meditation.
Very good. Yeah. What you say is very true. You said, you're only quiet when you meditate, right?
Yeah, I say when I don't have a lot of energy anymore, in the morning when I wake up, or before I go to bed, and yeah, when I'm super concentrated. So that's the time I have my meditative energy, like I find the equilibrium in me. But other than that, my energy can get really high that I have absolutely no control, and I would have to use those. I have to know how to rechannel my energy into something else that is healthy. And I know a lot of friends who have this kind of energy, and they would engage in a lot of unhealthy stuff. Yeah, they would go doing drug and many other things. But I have my judgment toward things that have unhealthy impact. I'm very much of a health control freak. So and that's why I channel my energy into something else, such as dancing or shouting or singing, or like all the kind of form that allow me to use up my energy. And when it's gone, I can come back to meditation, or come back to being a normal person.
You are normal the way you are. Hang on just a sec, okay? I'm going to put you on.
I say that I look like I'm high. I'm always high. Like without using any drug, I really look high.
Can you hold on one sec? I'm going to come right back to you, okay? Hold on one sec. Sorry, guys, that noise is a bit more aggravating on this end, I think. It's still going on. Also, I'm in a different room today and the light just went off, so I just went back to turn it on. Jen, are you still there?
I'm here.
Hi.
Yeah.
If I can make a couple comments. What I was talking about earlier, that the personality that we think of as you, right, isn't going to disappear with this awareness that you have, right? But your extrovertism, right, it has a purpose, right? Now, when we're controlled by our ego, right, we don't really control those basic aspects, right? ENFP, ISTJ. We're talking about Myers-Briggs for anybody who's not familiar with it, right? Whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, whether you're a thinking or a feeling person, etc. They're out of our control. And then we spend years trying to control it. The first thing I want to say is, if you're able to be silent when you're meditating, I'm assuming what you're talking about is when you sit down and you do a formal meditation. When you're engaged with another person, if you're fully present with that person, right, you're meditating. If you're fully present in the moment, and if you're fully present in the moment, there's no reason that you just also can modulate that degree of extroverts. Because you may be with a person who's really not comfortable around extroverts, but they want to talk to you, they want to get to know you, whatever the motivation is, right? If we're present in that moment, you have just as much control over your silence as when you're sitting in a lotus posture on the floor, pretending to meditate. You understand? You follow what I mean? That attribute of being extroverted or introverted, if we're present, we can use it. If we're wrapped up in our thoughts while we're engaging in that, let's say, a conversation with another person, right? Or if you're in a group of people, and that extrovert is just like, it's bouncing off the walls, it's everywhere, right? If you could go back and do this, the meditation, and say, you know, who's bouncing off the walls everywhere, right? Why am I bouncing off the walls everywhere? What is this about? Go internally. You just may be able to use that attribute as is appropriate for the situation, because it's not always appropriate to be an extrovert. If you go to a conference and there are 500 people and there's the Dalai Lama came to talk, all right? And you started jumping up with excitement and you were just saying, oh, I love what you're saying, like, oh, keep talking, right? That would be a very inappropriate use of your extrovertedness, correct? What's the difference? Right? Now that one, you have this authority figure, or you have a situation where you know you have to control it, but probably inside it's still working full tilt, which also means you're not going to get from listening to the Dalai Lama what he's really saying. If we're present, we can modulate the degree of my nature of being extroverted according to what's appropriate for the environment. If and again, I'm not making it good or bad at all. I'm making an observation, right? If I have to be an extrovert in every situation, I'm not even available for the situation. I'm creating the situation the way I want it to be as an extrovert. Follow what I'm saying? So consider, if you say I can only be quiet when I'm in meditation. First, what you mean is I'm only quiet when I sit down on the floor in a lotus position and I do all the classic things that people call meditation. I burn incense, candles. I have some figure that I worship. I wish I knew. So the first practice is be more present when you're in some other environment where the extrovert just wants to show up. Use it as we can use it we call it an attribute, right? Attributes are wonderful things. If somebody says, yo, you're way too extroverted, you really bother me, right? Now, one, you can say, thank you very much for sharing, and you just don't associate with them. Doesn't mean you don't like them anymore, but you say, I'm going to choose which world I surround myself with. I want to be around people who are extroverted. I want to be around people who like extroverts. That's one way of handling it. But as we know, life is always going to throw you environments and situations where maybe the extrovert isn't the appropriate behavior to have. And if you feel like you don't fit in that environment, what happens? Oh, you suffer.
I feel so sad.
Sorry?
I feel so sad.
Now, why do you feel so? That's a wonder. I thank you for sharing it. Why do you feel, or let me ask you this, who is sad? Who is feeling sad?
I mean, yeah, the ego.
The extroverted person is feeling sad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe inside, maybe there's some,
I know,
because
I know how to get myself to accommodate, but I do remember how sad the extrovert person feels when she's not accepted.
yeah, see,
Yeah, I can get myself.
that's what it's about, right? Is Being the extrovert, you get the rewards of the attention that the extrovert is seeking. The introvert gets the rewards of what they're seeking too. And so again, my first teacher said, to be a really whole person, you have to be everything. You have to be the sinner and the saint. You have to be the extrovert and the introvert. You have to be the thinker and the feeler. And you use them based on, or you bring them out based on the situation. That's a powerful human being. And that's a person who automatically they have more self-awareness because they are aware that my extrovert is not me. It's a tool. It's a tool for experiencing and interacting with the world, just as the introvert is. So if I stop saying, love me, love the extrovert in me, I start saying, here I am, and to interact with you today, in this hour, I'm going to be an introvert. To interact with somebody else, I'm going to be an extrovert. And just be present. If you make the effort to be aware of who you're interacting with and what their nature is, right? And what the environment is like, right? That's being aware right there. That's being closer to being in a meditative state in the present moment. And therefore, your awareness, right, will choose the extrovert or the introvert based on how I can be of service to who I'm with. If I want people to see me and I'm an extrovert, I'm going to show up, right? I'm going to be out there. I'm going to be in their faces. I'm going to be the life of the party. Is that serving you or is it serving them?
Yeah.
It's both. It's very accurate that you say it's both. What happens is when we're in another environment, when we're interacting with other people, we're 80 to 90% serving ourselves, and then the other people get the leftovers. That's the ego. It's the way it works. It's not a bad thing. It's our conditioned way of interacting with the world. Because when we're 80% invested in myself, right, I'm feeling safer. I'm feeling less vulnerable. When I'm projecting this attribute of extroversion, or in my case, introversion, right? I'm controlling the world as long as I'm projecting that. It's my safety zone. And other people will sense and they'll say, oh, if we want to be around Guy, we know we have to be more quiet and chilled and cool, right? So be present, and how about if we just try to be 51% for me and 49% for them? I'm still making me a priority, right? I'm still interested in my security, my safety, my being accepted, but I'm giving a lot more of myself than I was the other way. Make sense? It's a very powerful tool. Why are we all different? Why are there, in Myers-Briggs, there are 16 different quadrants, right? And the mixture of those, because no extrovert is completely extrovert, no extrovert is no introvert is completely, we're a mix, right? That's what gives life its color. Let's just learn how to use it. The way we learn how to use it is we're present. We're aware of ourselves, and we're deeply aware of the other people in the room, or who we're talking to, or the animals in the room. Whatever it is, we're there for them at least as much as we are for us. We'll become more present. We'll modulate those behavioral, the body, mind, ego behaviors will become very skillful at modulating them, which is really the greatest service that we can give to other people. Because then I don't have to show up all the time. I don't have to be the controller. It's a vulnerable place because me as a natural introvert, when I have to play the role of an extrovert, it's not natural to me. So I feel more vulnerable. But if I practice it, and when I feel vulnerable, the best way out of feeling vulnerable is I start thinking about you. When I think about you, I forget my vulnerability until my thought comes back to me. Make sense? My first teacher, I talk about him a lot because he was the one that really got me on my whole awakening, and without him, I wouldn't be here. I'd be something completely different. What he said, I need to regather my thoughts. This noise is getting worse. Yes. My first teacher, who I would say was an introvert also, he said, enter the room and leave the room with no residue of you being in the room. I'm paraphrasing him, but what he was saying is when you show up to a room, don't make waves. Find out if the room, first of all, even wants you there. Check. When we walk in the room and say, ta-da, I'm here, we haven't gotten the feeling of the room, of the other people in the room, or the person that we're going to engage with now. It's just like a steamroller. Whether it's my introversion that walks in the room and doesn't speak and everybody says, what's wrong with Guy? Or it's the extrovert who comes out and everybody says, oh, he's this obnoxious self today. Right? Come into the room without making waves. Be calm when you come into the room and feel the room, feel the other people. Lose yourself, and then you'll know how much waves to make. And when you leave the room as it was before you came into the room, or when you first walked through the door. What that means is be humble. Don't go into the room with the agenda that I want everybody to miss me when I'm gone. I want everybody to wonder where he is. Oh, he's not here. It's different. Why? Why isn't he here? Slide in, slide out. It's what all the great teachers, whether it was the Buddha, the Dalai Lama, the Jesus, Sri Ramana Maharshi, all the great spiritual teachers have said, be in service. The greatest leader is the one who nobody knows was leading. That's the same thing. If you walk into a room, make your contribution, but don't have to put your stamp on the walls of the room. Say, Guy was here, 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 and wasn't he exciting? Right? Or wasn't he boring? Wasn't he handsome? Wasn't he ugly? If I don't go into the room needing to stamp the room, so when I leave, everybody remembers me, what I said, what I did, there will be an impression in the room much deeper than if I come in and try to impress the room. Leaving the room without making a big impression is just being humble. When you're humble and you leave the room, people may not even know why, but the room will have been more energized, more charged, more positive. People say that was a really impressive meeting. And they can't quite put their finger on why. It's because your ego didn't show up, just the real you showed up. That awareness, if you walk into the room as awareness, you move the room, you change the energy of the room on a subconscious level. If I walk into the room and say, it's showtime, I change the energy of the room, but it's a very superficial way. It's a very materialistic energy. People will forget that eventually. If you come into the room with awareness, and I'm not saying you have to be quiet or loud, but you know how to deal with the room, and you wait to find out what is the energy in the room. When you leave, you will have made a much bigger impact on the room, on the people, on the world, on the planet. Now the question is the ego won't want to do that. The ego wants to be remembered. Awareness knows that there's nothing to remember because it's just all awareness. Awareness doesn't forget awareness, but the ego is very invested in people forgetting.
I feel like, do you think that an introvert would want to be remembered by the group of people?
Who wants to be remembered? The ego one. I'm not talking about the ego. I'm talking about you being awareness and then using the extrovert and the introvert as is appropriate. Awareness doesn't have an agenda, right? Awareness wouldn't ask the question is what I'm doing a positive or a negative? But continue your statement. Go ahead. I interrupted you.
I feel like I absolutely do not agree with this whole statement of coming and not leaving any residue of yourself in the room. I can walk inside the room and have full awareness about myself, and I don't do anything. But by the fact that I walk in, I just change the whole energy of the room. Like sometimes I go to meetings and I don't say a thing, and people still could see the difference just because, and people remember me because
Yeah.
I walked in. And that's the thing that I get commented so often, that people remember me, or maybe just a few lines that I get to speak, that people remember me. Like it's something that I'm just being myself. I'm being myself, and I feel like, say, an introvert. I mean, I have an introvert friend who told me that the least thing he wants is attention, and therefore an introvert might actually say, I want to please be humble and come into a room and leave a room with the least impact, because he doesn't want to be remembered. But an extrovert would come in, and the extrovert would desire to be remembered by people, because the extrovert want to connect, want to be the center of attention. And so the extrovert line would be, leave the world better than you have found it.
That's a really good point. Thank you for saying that. Who thinks that they know how the world should be? The real you or the ego?
Definitely, we will be talking about the ego, but we don't really know what the real us would be saying, because everything we're talking about is theory, right? It's
Well,
really hard.
I wouldn't say theory at all.
Say that the real you will want to leave nothing behind.
Here's something, I know where you're coming with this. If I walk into the room without making waves, and I observe the people in the room, and I'm also very self-aware. There are 16 tools in the Myers-Briggs realm of, right? Extrovert, introvert, thinking, feeling, all of those. I don't want to go into them right here, right? There are 16 tools. If I walk in quietly, peacefully, and I am not thinking about what I want the world to be, I can use any of those 16 tools at any moment. A person who does that, when the meeting is over, people say, wow, what was that experience? That was amazing. Now, if I walk in as an extrovert, and who's walking in the room is the extrovert, not me. My personality is walking into the room, right? They're going to say, wow, that was an amazing meeting. She's really an impressive person. But do you want them to remember the impressive person or the truth that you were sharing? When I walk into the room with humility, when I walk into the room, not being an introvert or an extrovert, I walk in the room being awareness. I may walk in and be quiet and say one word, and it will change those people's lives. I mean, this is theoretically, I'm not saying I do this, right? It would change the life of all those people. Now, it's possible if it's a room full of introverts, right? And I walk in as an extrovert, they won't get much out of it because they'll be intimidated by the extrovert. Likewise, if I'm an extrovert and I walk into a room of introverts, they'll feel defensive the whole time and they won't get what the real thing that you want to get out of. They'll remember you, but they won't remember what you share. All I'm saying is if you walk into a room with awareness, real awareness, and then you say, okay, these people are, the energy of this room is quite out there. It's extrovert. I will deal with them as an extrovert does. The results are going to be very powerful. But if I walk in as my extroverted personality, what I do is I say, I think I know the best way to reach these people. And I think I know what they need to learn from me today. I'm not really considering them. I'm considering the picture that I have of what they should get out of it. Now, I'm not talking about if you're going into a business meeting and you're teaching how to build a watch. I'm not saying don't tell them the facts of building a watch. But you can still walk into that same meeting from a place of not knowing. I know all about a watch. I'm totally prepared and I'm totally comfortable with that. But I don't know who these people are, really. I don't know what they really want. I don't know what is going to click with them and what's not going to click with them. So I walk in not knowing, and I feel the room. I listen to the people. You know, you engage in little conversation to feel the energy. And then you use whatever tool is appropriate. You still repeat your stuff, but you come from a standpoint of a very powerful standpoint. People will be much more influenced by you that way. Yeah, Tim, you had a question or a statement?
Yes, I think I kind of get where thing comes from, because doesn't it also matters what you want to achieve with that group of people? Because now it seems like you're talking from the standpoint that you're coming in a teacher. But what if I come, or what if someone goes into a room and it's just a party? Should you then always take the other people in consideration of how you are behaving? Like there's difference here. Because for myself, I am more introverted. So I am more like Ting's friend. I don't need the attention. But over the years, I have developed the skill to, if I really have to, then I can be a little bit more extroverted and be with more people and also speak with them. So doesn't it kind of matter what the situation is? That's kind of my thought.
Yeah, you know, I'm not doing a good job of explaining this. The first thing I want to say is if you walk into a room like you're going into a meditation, you're aware, you're calm. you haven't chosen any of your tools yet, then you will choose your tools, the way you deal with the room, whether it's a party or whether it's an operating theater and you're a doctor, right? You'll choose the tools more appropriately. That's really what I'm saying, right? Even if I go to a party, right? I can walk into a party with humility. I can walk in with awareness. And then I will develop my tool set as the party goes along. Now, if I go to the party with the desire to be accepted, right, I'm going to behave to get your approval. It's okay, it's totally self-centered, right? And we do that all the time. But remember that, is there ever a moment, if, are we a spiritual tourist or are we really serious? Is there a moment in your life where it wouldn't be a very high purpose to be in service to whoever is in the room with you? Is there ever a moment where being in service to the other person is a bad thing? Really service, right? I'm not talking about selling them a car or anything. I mean, be there for them. Is there ever a moment in an interaction with another person or an animal even, where being in service isn't a very noble, wonderful place to begin with?
If you're trying to be in service of the other people to please them so they like you,
that's not being in service. That's being in service to yourself. Vis-a-vis looking like you're being in service to them. I'm talking about the real work here, right? Now, what you say to me is very true, because that's what the ego does. Is the ego says, "Oh, I've learned all these spiritual things, right? I know how to do this now, so I'm going to walk to them and say, 'Oh, how are you? Oh, I really care about you.'" That's the ego saying, "Now I'm just using a more clever way to get what I want out of you." I'm talking about the real service. I don't know what you want. It doesn't take a long time. It's not like you have to sit in the party for an hour before you participate. They say within 7 seconds, subconsciously, you know who the other person is that you're dealing with. You know inside and out. So if you just pause for that moment and say, I'm going to this party, I'm going to be in service to these people, and I'm going to enjoy myself too. It's not like I can't have fun at the party. It's just a shift of awareness.
Yeah, sure. I like the idea of being at service of people, and I think I've been trying to build that mindset for since I am in the spiritual path. But it could be really tricky because you could rip yourself off the right to be yourself. Because some people could be difficult, and sometimes you have to step a lot out of your egoistically step a lot out of your comfort zone just to please, like to make someone happy, and you not really know how to make them actually happy. So it's hard to be of service to somebody if you don't have the hold into your center. Like if you're not strong enough, don't be of service to other people, because if you push yourself through that, then you end up hating yourself. Or if you don't hate yourself, you hate the person who is asking for the service.
You said something very important. You said, how would I know how to make them happy? Being in service is not to make them happy. First of all, you've studied enough. You can't make another person happy. Happiness comes from within. That's what non-dualism is all about. Happiness is, we are always happy until we cloud it over with our own filters. Remember the sunglasses? If I want to make somebody happy, who is that that's speaking? It's my ego. My ego says, I think I know better how you should be. Let's say you're depressed, and I say, oh, I want to make you happy. Who gives you the right to change their state? Who gives me the right to change their state unless they've asked for it? If I just show up and I just listen to them, maybe ask them some questions, but I'm not trying to change their state. I'm not trying to make them happy. I'm trying to understand them. That includes understand why they're sad. Maybe just having a real human being really listen to them will change their states. The arguments you're making are all really valid. And I understand, and part of it is my lack of the skill of explaining this as well as I can. But I can tell you this right now, all the comments are coming from the ego. They're all the ego saying, wait a minute, this rocks my world. If I have to go into a room with no agenda, if I have to go into a room humbly with no intention to change the room until I know the room better, those are things the ego asks. It's the ego that shows when it says, here I am. Whether it's the introvert or the extrovert. You know, the introvert is a very evil person. Can be, right? I speak from personal experience. I can go in a room and be the quiet person in the corner. What I'm really trying to do is very cleverly get them to pay attention to the poor guy in the corner. It's also a way of getting attention and being safe. Both the ego, both the introvert and the extrovert are problems, and they're incredibly beautiful skills. What I'm saying, give it a try. If you don't agree with this, it's perfectly okay. But give it a try a few times of just come in with no agenda of how you're going to, other than if they're asking you to tell them how to build a watch, right? You don't just say, today we're not going to talk about a watch at all. We're just going to sit here and hold hands and meditate. I'm not saying that. You know, teach them the watch, but come in saying, I really don't know what's going to impact them. Sometimes, you know, you can go to a speaker who knows everything he's talking about. And 2 days later, you don't remember anything they said. And then sometimes you go to a speaker who's not a good speaker at all. They make mistakes, they fumble with their words, they don't use big, beautiful words, and you remember them for years. Something touched you.
That I agree.
What I'm saying is that's the real you. When you move people like that and they remember you for 10 years, it's because the real you was showing up, not the ego part. All I'm saying is try walking into a room, being the real you. Don't be perfect. Don't be polished. Even I was invited a couple years ago to talk to a group of high school students about public speaking. It was a 2-hour session. I said, you know, I'm not really a comfortable public speaker, and I've never talked really about how to be a public speaker. So I'm not going to talk about any of the techniques. And I walked in, and we started from absolute zero. And I didn't teach any techniques about public speaking. I talked to them completely about who they were, what holds them back from showing up who they are. 2 years later, once in a while, I've run into a couple of the students, and they still say that was the best class I've had. Why? I didn't tell them what I knew up here. I said, find yourself. Be yourself. Don't care about how polished the words are. The only reason it worked is because I came in to really be in service to them and say, I don't know what you want. I don't know. I know what the subject is, but I don't know how to reach you. I don't even know what you want. So let's talk about you. And I would bring it back to public speaking. You know, I would still relate them, but I never gave a minute of a technique class. Am I making any more sense about it? And if not, don't listen to me. Go try it. Just see. Go into a room like you're meditating. Observe the room. Feel the room. I know every one of you can do it. Even those that I don't know that long. First of all, the fact that you're here means that you're really into awareness. You're into being of service. Nobody comes to something like this to learn how to manipulate people. So I already have a lot of confidence and trust. Try that. If nothing else, observe yourself when you walk in the room and say, okay, am I the quiet person in the corner or am I the life of the party? What's that all about? Who is it, the real me, or is it my ego that's playing a role? And why is it playing that role? Try it. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to hang on to this for too much longer. Give it a try. And when you start coming up with objections, just be aware of where those objections are coming. Who is the objector? The real you doesn't object to anything. The real you doesn't. When you know, you know, you don't know. When you walk into a room, assured of how you're going to interact with the room, you have no idea what's the best way to interact with the room. When you know, you don't know, you know. It's not just words, it's not just a saying, it's the truth. But we're conditioned from toddlers. Control the environment. Walk in like we know what we're doing, we know where we're going, and this is just the way that I am. You're not. It's just the way your ego is. It's the way the conditioned mind is. Let awareness come into the room first. Experiment with it. I don't know how your awareness will show up. When I talk to you, and I'm really aware of you, I'm meditating. Does it look like I'm meditating? Not at all. Willing to try it? Any other questions about it or comments about it? Or we beat it up enough for today? Okay, I want to talk about another part of the spiritual tourist thing. How many of you, does everybody meditate in some form or another? Okay. Do you meditate once a day? Do you sit down and do meditation? Have you explored any other kinds of meditation? How many of you do some kind of chanting? If you're Buddhist or Hindu, okay. Anybody else chant? I see one hand up. Just for the sake of, if your picture's not on, do a hand clapping or something, just so that I know you're participating. Okay. So some of you do some kind of chanting. How many of you do some kind of prayer?
Chanting, like
Go ahead.
maybe I did before, but for a long time.
Okay. But you've done it, you're familiar with it. Okay. How many of you would call yourself a religious person? P, I love how you're doing it. You're like, is it still okay to be a religious person? Should I really say I'm a religious? Ooh, this is scary.
No, yeah, it's basically am I still religious? That's the question.
Yeah. No, I'm not talking about how you were born.
Yeah.
I'm talking about today.
Yeah.
Are you a religious person?
I would say so. Yeah.
Anybody else? Now, let me ask this. Who here is a spiritual person? I don't mean a perfected spiritual person. I mean somebody who's really interested in spirituality, who wants to be a better person. Okay, I think everybody here would fit that bill. Okay. For me, I was raised a Christian until I was 13 years old. I had to go to church every Sunday. I had to go to, what do they call it, catechism class. I had to study. And then at 13 years old, I went through confirmation. I don't remember what confirmation was about, but my parents said, you go until you get confirmed. I think because somehow my soul would always be saved that way, no matter what I did in my life. After I was confirmed, they said, now it's your choice. You do whatever you want. And I said, great, I'm out. And for years, I hated religion. And for years, I've had the mantra, I'm not a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person. How many people can relate to that, of separating? No, I don't want to be a Buddhist or a Hindu or a Christian or a Muslim. I don't buy into all that stuff, but I'm a spiritual person. Anybody relate to that?
I feel like I'm becoming more
Becoming more what?
spiritual, where I should practice religious activities, the actual praying, the chanting, the actual mechanics, taking the fruit to the, the traditional way. But I feel like now I'm understanding.
Actually, for Shivananda yoga, everything that we have done, say chanting or including the offering, it's been explained in a logical way. Like chanting, because we chant in Sanskrit, and the sound, when combined together, will create the wave of consciousness. And it's not like singing Christian song. That's what I've tried in church as well. But those are worldly language. So they only say that we sing it because we want to practice devotion, like building a connection to God. And that explanation require a lot of faith, But for chant and mantra Sanskrit, I believe in. I like to test the idea of whether or not there is a wave or a vibration that comes from chanting all the Sanskrit words together or not. So like there's an explanation and not just a practice without explanation.
I got you.
That I would be okay with.
See if this relates to any of you. One of the things that why I dropped out of Christianity and why I disliked quite strongly any religion. Well, there were two things really. One was the dogma, which I still could care less about. The structure, the rigidity of any religion, right, doesn't interest me in the least. And it was the first thing that turned me off to religion. You have to do this, you can't do this, you go to hell if you do this, right? The very rigid structure of it was against my nature or against my ego. The second thing was you go into a church and it's overpowering, there's this big cross with Jesus on the cross looking in agony and miserable, and we have to get on our knees and pray to him for forgiveness. And I was like, I ain't praying to anybody. That just doesn't fit for me. I had my best friend, she was on here before, Barb. She's Jewish, and she's very Jewish. And for years and years and years, in the group that we met in, we would have some ceremonies, and we would get down on our knees, right? We weren't praying to a particular person. She couldn't do it. And I asked her, and I said, what's this all about? She said, I'm Jewish. I can't bow down to any authority. I don't remember exactly the details of what it is in Judaism, right? But she would not, for, I don't know, 50 years, she would not get down on her knees to anyone or anything. I didn't want anything to do with the idol, the idolatry, the worshiping an idol. And by the way, what I'm going to share with you now, I've never shared with anybody before in this kind of an environment. I never would have even thought about it before, but something came to me one morning when I was meditating, and I wrote about it, and I had a different understanding. And I'm going to go back to last week. I talked with P and Nick, and I forgot who else was there, about a teacher that I had in India. I was studying in Rishikesh, Vedanta, and the main teacher had to go to Germany to teach for 2 weeks. So they called in a substitute Swami. And this guy was from the South. I didn't know who, nobody knew who he was. He was a very old guy, really a funny guy. And he was brilliant, and I enjoyed him. I wish that he would have been the teacher the whole time. I really enjoyed listening to him. And one day he said something in the class, and I was so amazed by it. I said, I'm not going to let him get away with this. My ego is not going to bring up the question in the room and make everybody listen to what I wanted to find out. Right? Because the room didn't respond anyway like I did. So I said, this is between he and I. He said, if the devas are the small gods, right? In Hinduism, we have hundreds of deities, right? There's only Brahman, but Brahman has hundreds of attributes, and each attribute is a deity, or a small god with a small g, or a deva. And he said, the devas don't want you to wake up. And I can't believe a teacher of Vedanta is saying that there's anything in the religion and the spirituality that doesn't want us to know who we are. And he said, because if you wake up, you don't need them anymore. And the devas have personalities just like humans. They're not Brahman, they're attributes of Brahman, right? He said, if you wake up, you won't pray to the devas anymore. You won't chant their names. You won't do all of the rituals that they get attention for. And I was just blown away by his statement. So after the class was over, I met him in the courtyard, and I said, okay, wait a minute, can I ask you more about this? And he smiled and he laughed a little bit. And I said, before you came into class, I saw you in the temple praying. You were on your knees, you were chanting, you had the beads, you were in front of one of the devas. What is this all about? And he said, yes. He said, and after we get done talking, I'm going back there. I'm going to do it again. And my mind was saying, this is very confusing. What is this about? And he said this to me. He said, do you have relationships with other people? I said, yeah. Animals? Yes. Have a pet? The world? Yeah, all the time. He said, we live in a relational world, don't we? And I said, yeah, for sure. Nothing we don't do that is without some kind of relation. He said, then if we're stuck in a relationship world, why don't you just pick a higher relationship to have for now? A relationship that won't give you any suffering. A relationship that's not going to try to manipulate you. Just pick for a while a healthier relationship. And I said to him, I said, well, for sure, the romantic relationship I had have always been full of problems, right? My family relationships are always full of problems. My work relationships are always full of some problems, one form or another. And he said, yeah, so pick a relationship where you have the opportunity to be a problem-free relationship. And that really struck me. And for the first time, my ego said, okay, you know, praying to this idol, chanting, may not be. I didn't change my mind. I just opened the door and said, maybe there's something good to it. Maybe I don't have to be my defensive self and say, I don't worship idols. I certainly don't worship what the church has become. That was 11 years ago. For 11 years, I've been much more at peace with religion. But last week, in my meditation, 2 weeks ago, when my meditation was done, I went into the other parts. It's not my home, so I don't have my own stuff. But I found a couple Buddha statues, and I put them on the front of the table where I meditate. And I meditated again. And what became really aware to me, and I've done now every day since, and why I'm sharing it with you now, is when I'm praying, meditating, chanting, right? And I have this object of idolatry in front of me. I have the Buddha. I sent you guys in one of the preludes to this meeting, I showed you a picture of Jesus, the Trimurti, which is the three heads of Brahman in Hinduism, and Buddha. That was kind of a little teaser that I'm going to talk about this today. Is before and after the meditation, I stood there, I did my salutations. I only had Buddha figurines in the house. I got down on my knees, I did what I had learned in Buddhist classes, Vajrayana Buddhism, how to pray. I did all that. And I sat down and I was aware. I don't know how many of you are aware of the significance of the number 3. I'm going to do a gematria presentation one day about the numbers. But the number 3, forget everything else, is an incredibly powerful, significant number. Nature is full of patterns of 3. If you look at a tree, a branch, when the branch grows, it always grows with 3 branches coming out of it. And then it branches out in 3, and it branches out in 3. I think the bumblebee, its stripes are organized in 3s. In Hinduism, the Trimurti is 3 figures of Brahman, 3 manifestations of Brahman, right? In Christianity, there's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. All throughout the world, spiritual and physical, 3 is a very, very powerful number. 3 is the number of creativity. I think that's why, is the creative energy, the energy of creation is found within the number 3. And what I became aware of was, there are 3 things that I am completely at peace and in fact happy and motivated to either chant or to pray towards. Number 1, if I look at, I know the least about Hinduism, so I'm just going to talk about Christianity and Buddhism. I looked at the figure of Christ and I looked at Buddha and I said, there's a human being here who gave the ultimate sacrifice for us. Buddha said, I do this to wake up the world. Jesus Christ was crucified in Christianity to pay for the world's sins, to wake up, to heal everybody else. They were the supreme symbol, right? I am not invested in the person, but they were the supreme symbol of pure sacrifice, of pure service, being in service to other people. Never excluding myself in that, right? Because I am a person. The Buddha was the same thing. So number 1, there's a historical figure who gave the ultimate sacrifice in one way or another to be in service to us. I can bow to that. I'm not bowing to the flesh and blood, but I'm bowing to who he was, whether it's Jesus or Buddha. Second thing is what did they do? Now I can include the Hindu aspect again, right? What was their purpose for the ultimate sacrifice? To teach us how to wake up, right? In their various forms of religious, and their cultural backgrounds or religious backgrounds, they taught according to those backgrounds. But they were all teaching how to find out who I am. Jesus said, the way to God is through I am. People mistook that and said, oh, it means through Jesus. No, he means through the I am, through me. That's what the Buddha was always clear about, was he was impermanence, he was real. With the Buddha nature is the way to wake up and know who I am. Hinduism is the same thing, but I can't explain it in detail because I don't know the richness, the depth of it. So now I say, there's not only the person who sacrificed everything for us to wake up. I can bow down to that very humbly. Second is there's a path that they gave us. When I look at the Buddha, I see the person. Now I see the path. The path is as much the figurine as the idol as the person. I love with all my heart that path. I can bow down to the path. No problem. With gratitude and with pure love and humility. The third thing is, now I'll talk from the Buddhist standpoint, is what we talk about in non-dualism is what in Buddhism they call Buddha nature. It's who we really are. What the Buddha made the ultimate sacrifice was to teach me this path so I can find my true Buddha nature. That nature, which is what radiated from him. So in the Buddha, I see the historical figure, Gautama Buddha. I see the path. That was him. It wasn't something that he taught. He was teaching what? He was teaching the Buddha nature. 3. What beauty. Even as I say it, I'm like trembling a little bit inside. I get a little bit choked up. When I realized this, it was like, when I bow down to my little statue of Buddha, I'm bowing down to those 3 things, which are really one thing. It's incredibly powerful for me. I don't know how it is for you, but it freed me totally to get out of my ego, my resistance about being less than, putting somebody above me, somebody with more authority, with more wisdom, whatever it is, right? That was now you may not have the same thing, but I know my resistance to religion was 1, the dogma, 2, I don't pray to somebody. That's my ego saying, they're not better than I am. When I had that realization, why would I not? The human being who sacrificed for me, does he not deserve my honor, my thanks? The path, does it not reserve my devotion? The Buddha nature, that's love. Do I not honor love? All those 3 questions, I had no more justification for not doing it. And now I'm going to bring in a fourth one. And this is the kicker. If I'm still uncomfortable, because there was still something in me that was saying, for all my life, I have kind of resisted this. I get this, I realize this, but there's still an attribute of mine in my ego that says, not quite so fast. You still don't need, okay, you got that. You don't need to bow down. You don't need to be devotional. I'm using bow down as just a physical example. You don't need to be devotional. You got it, right? The work is done. You don't have to be devotional. Then I realized a fourth thing. My whole life I've been devotional. I never knew it. I practice devotion every day. I am devoted all day long, from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep. And even in dream sleep, I suppose I'm still devoted. You know who I'm paying devotion to? 24 hours a day, or 18 hours a day because I don't count my sleep. I am in complete devotion to my ego. When I don't come from awareness, when I interact with the world, as I do every day, I'm in devotion. I'm saying, ego, you know how to live this life. You know how to move this body. You know what's right and wrong. You know how everybody else should be. You know how the world should look like. You know how the whole world should behave. You know how I can treat the world. I am totally devoted to you, ego. And when I realized that, I thought about that teacher when he said, as long as you're in the relational world, pick a better relation to have. What I got 2 weeks ago was the relationship I have is the relationship I have with my ego. And it's a very dysfunctional relationship. Yet I bow down to it all day long. When something inside me says, don't do that, even if I don't do it, I negotiate before I don't do it. Oh yeah, but you know, it'd be so much fun. It would taste so good. Yeah, but it would be a real power trip. Yeah, but I get what I want. I won't be lonely anymore for that moment. If I don't, if it's on a rare moment, and it's a lot more now than it used to be, that I really observe and come from my heart, the heart center. I catch myself all the day, and I'm happy that I catch myself, because that means at least I'm being the observer, that I'm negotiating with my ego all the time. But it's a dysfunctional relationship. It gets me across the streets really well. It does a lot of things for me really well. As a servant, see, I'm not in devotion to a servant. The emblem, the symbol of the Buddha or Christ, right, is that they're the master. I didn't want to be devoted to a master. That went against something in me, which turns out was my ego. But I'm in devotion all the time to a false master. It's my ego. So if I spend 16 hours, 18 hours a day in devotion to my ego, in some form of devotion or not, it might be a little bit, it may be a lot, but my ego pretty much runs the show most of the day. If I unknowingly am in devotion to this ego for 18 hours a day, I can sure as hell spend 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night, 10 minutes whenever I feel it, having a better relationship with something else. And also, Tin, you said about in Shivananda, and I not describe, it's fantastic what they do. And I love what they teach. They're right when they say about when you're chanting, it's a logical chanting. Buddhism is very logical. Christianity is very logical when you really look at it. Right? The devotion that I'm talking about, the chanting, the prayer, if it's only logical, it is missing an ingredient still. My mind is open to it. My heart may not be so open to it. For me, not for you, for me, I need to open my heart more. It's too closed down. So I love Sanskrit chants. I'm not good at them, but I love them. I studied Sanskrit a little bit, but I was too lazy about it. If I had the chance to do it again, if I went back to India and immerse myself, I would maybe do it. The ego is, the logical part is really important, but don't deny the heart part. For me, the devotion is the heart part. It skips the mind altogether. It's not logical. It's a sensory, it's a sensual experience, not of my physical, my five senses. With that, I become a little bit more whole again. My heart finds the power in some kind of devotion, chanting, prayer, even just looking at the Buddha or Christ or the Trimurti. My logical, the good part of my mind, which is very important, right? They're not a conflict anymore. They just come together and say, oh yeah, ooh, this feels really good. This is whole now. I'm complete. I feel good. I'm not saying to become religious, not at all. I'm saying be aware that if you kind of shy away from devotional behaviors, be aware that you're engaged in the biggest con of your life. You are devoted to your ego. You may be less devoted than you were a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But if you really do some self-observation, you're going to find out how devoted to your ego you still are. It will always show up in your behaviors. That's why we say self-observe. If I sit here and I'm not engaged in anything, I can say, oh yeah, I'm in control of my ego much more. My ego doesn't have that impact. But then we go out in the world and we catch ourselves and we just observe it. Ooh, where's that coming from? Oh wow, that is my ego. So since we've spent our entire lives in devotion to our egos, we do it all day long. We chant, we pray without chanting and praying, but in our subconscious, in our minds, we're engaged in devotional activity, right? So for me, I said, okay, I see this beautiful truth. I've been doing this one for my whole life. I've resisted these three for very good reasons, but I wasn't seeing the whole picture. There's a saying in English, if you guys know it, is say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If there are things that you don't like about the teacher, don't throw out the teachings along with the teacher. Separate them. I separate from the Buddha, from Jesus, from Trimurti. I separate all the bullshit of their religions. I throw them out. But I do not throw out the essence, the magic, the mystery of the three of those things. In fact, I bow down to them. And by honoring them, by chanting them, by praying, by meditating, with that awareness of those three, you know what happens? Is this one gets weaker. Because I'm putting my heart and soul into these three, and I'm ignoring this one. And eventually, it's the fire you feed. You know that one? The analogy of you have two campfires. One of them is anger and one of them is love. When I'm angry, I'm putting wood on the angry fire and it gets bigger. And the fire of love gets smaller because it's not getting the fuel it needs. The fire we feed is the fire that grows inside us. My resistance to the beauty of this that I didn't see before was making this stronger. Don't trust this stuff. It's got all kinds of shit attached to it. Trust me. Have I ever let you down? When I give these some attention, every moment that I give these three attention, I'm not giving attention this one. I'm taking the fuel and I'm putting it over here and not here, and it's slowly getting weaker. Doesn't mean I need to, I'm in my friend's apartment. That's why the Buddhist stuff is behind me, which I love the energy. She's very Buddhist and I love the energy in her apartment. But it doesn't mean that I have to become Buddhist or Hindu or Christian. And it doesn't mean I have to espouse. I don't need to do anything else but recognize the wisdom and the human being that brought the wisdom to us and say, these are three things that I can worship. I can be humble in front of. I can love with all my heart and soul. I don't change my clothes. I don't change my vocabulary. I don't become religious. But I've become very religious. It's the true religion. It's not the dogma, and it's not just seeing Jesus as as the person who's my savior. I see Jesus in me as the same. Sorry for preaching. I'll stop now. Does it make sense to you? Is there something that's open to it? Is there something that's defensive to it? Self-observe, find out where it fits, where it doesn't fit. But what's, you want to take a 5-minute break?
I think I have to go and cook a lunch for my friend.
Okay.
After
Okay.
this. But
Okay.
what you have said is somehow very much relevant to what I experienced yesterday. And I'm still very much in doubt, and that's why somehow today I feel like I'm a bit undressed and provocative.
And what?
Provocative.
Provoked. Okay.
Because yesterday I watched a documentary about Osho's life and some of the asshole line that he have said and all the stupid things he have done, and consider all the writings that he have passed on after he have changed his name to be Osho, and listen to a documentary podcast about Swami Vishnu Devananda, who was the founder of Shivananda Yoga, and the sexual abuse that he have conducted on 11 women, and the story that come along with it, have really broke my heart. Like it feels like at first I perceive it to be okay. Nobody is perfect, but deep in me, it really broke my heart. Like I feel really sad, really sad. Logically, I try to tell myself that that's okay. The teaching might not be wrong, but emotionally, I feel so hurt.
Yeah.
And then that's why I dive again that, oh yeah, they are human and they have personality and they have the ego and they're communicating everything they know through their ego, and their teaching I don't know. I mean, we say that we don't believe in the, we may not believe in the person or the person who deliver the teaching, but they have gotten their mind to be able to understand and comprehend and deliver these teachings. So it also very objective of their personality, of their karma, to be able to produce that. And if they are not, if they are themselves not able to deliver that qualities, that saint, that divine qualities that they wrote in lost book that cost a lot of papers to print and all the internet space, to finally prove that they're not able to do it. It only their mind writing blah blah all these things. And that's why I feel like I'm just gonna like leave me alone. Like don't talk to me about divine qualities and all those things that you're talking about. And then you told me that you people like we run away from relationship in the world because these relationships manipulate us. And actually, spiritual relationship with God for me now, and as I reflect for the past 2 years, is the most manipulative relationship I have ever had, because I've changed completely my diet, completely my lifestyle, and the only relationship that doesn't manipulate me is the relationship with my ego. And therefore, I feel really pissed. I'm really saddened, really pissed, really lost. I don't believe anything else. Even the image of Buddha and Jesus, now I come to believe so say Swami Vishnudevananda or Osho, these people are not perfect, but the marketing image of them is perfect.
Sure.
Same thing, Buddha or Jesus, probably they were not that like of a saint, like a divine qualities, that they did not really have the story of hanging on this cross to sacrifice for the world, but just the story of it, like the marketing story of it, is all a big lie. And so I feel like, leave me alone. Don't tell me how to harness my ego, and don't tell me that I'm not real. Like this is not real. Yeah, I'm done. Sorry.
I hear you, and I think probably other people have had the same experience.
Oh, we heard. Yeah.
Yeah, couple of things, if I can comment on it, is let's talk about Jesus and Buddha. Did they market themselves, or did the church come along, or the temple come along and market them? Osho marketed himself. Many sages have marketed themselves. I agree with you on that. Jesus and Buddha, from the best that we can tell, and I believe it to be accurate, is they didn't market themselves. But their followers, who were much less aware than they were, turned it into something to market.
Can I ask Tian something?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So what's next for you?
I don't know. I'm really in total shock. I'm really in total shock today. And yeah, in my meditation, I feel like I'm crying inside of me.
Ken, sorry, you said I'm in real shock. And then what did you say?
I feel like my mind is trying to calm me down, but emotionally, I know there's a volcano going to erupt. That I'm totally hurt. And I don't know why. I've been practicing so, like I've been manipulating my my being to be called, to be considered, to understand what Atman is, to be considered to be devotional. You know, all this practice I'm doing, and it now become, yeah, as you use the word, it's like a moment of awakening for me, a manipulative relationship. Because they say if I'm not on vegetarian diet, then all those ghosts of the soul, the ghost of fish and meat will be around me, and I won't be able to be enlightened. If I don't meditate, I won't be able to reach to the source. If I don't, if I listen to too much provocative and loud music, I won't be able to find the calmness. I need to be with people who have nice meditative energy, listen to nice meditative Sanskrit song, and I should not just go and play. Like I should always be curtailing my desires, my emotions, and I just don't go with the first thought, go with the second thought. And that's finally, I feel like it's the most manipulative things I have ever had in my life in the past 2 years, because I'm very much of a goal driven, and I did buy the idea of awakening and enlightenment, like I'm buying any idea out there, whether it's fitness program, is education program, going to university, you get a better future, everything
Everything in the outside world is marketing driven. It's all relational. It's, you know, so your observation is very good. The non-dual teaching, and you can even say, well, non-dualism is another kind of marketing. You know, I'm trying to sell you this, but you know, I'm talking. I'm not asking you to buy anything. And the great teachers also were not wanting you. You know, one of the beautiful things is the real teachers don't want disciples. The real teachers don't want people to hang on. My first teacher taught me that really strongly. He said, you know, don't make me your teacher. Don't try to be a disciple. The real teacher wants to get rid of you, not to keep you around. And if they give you lots of commandments to do, lots of do this, don't do that, you know, it's very conscriptive. It keeps you around. You're always needing to find out what else can't I do. But when you're talking about it, I'm thinking of the saying, the dark before the light. My suggestion is be with your bad feelings that you're experiencing, you know, and trace them back and say, you know, where are they coming from? Why are they coming from? And ask. When I think about the dark before the light, and I hear you speaking, and I've been there, I know what you're talking about. Is it possible that you really are making progress spiritually? You're not making progress following orders. You're making progress finding out who you are. A little bit. Is it possible that this, and it's perfect timing that you thought this yesterday and we're talking about it today, just like everything else is always perfect timing. Is it possible that this is what, you know what, in American history, in the Wild West, there was an American officer in the military named Custer, General Custer. And he was responsible for massacring millions of Native Americans. Finally, he had one battle that was too many, and they killed him. And they called it Custer's Last Stand. It was a very bloody battle. And the Indians, the Native Americans killed Custer. So now we refer to it as Custer's last stand. What that means is, this is a moment where your ego is going to make the biggest battle it can. It says, I'm feeling threatened right now. She's onto something. She's digging it. She's liking it. She's committed to it. If she goes too much deeper into this, I may lose my power here. So I'm going to do everything I can to keep that from happening. Great change comes through the darkest times, the confusing times. Just consider the possibility that what you're experiencing right now is that moment. Not the only moment that it will happen again and again and again, right? But consider, meditate on it. Is it possible that all of the resistance that you're feeling and you're expressing right now, the frustration, the anger, the hurts, they're all very valid feelings, because you're right, human beings are pretty shitty, and even a lot of the people that call themselves masters are pretty shitty people. Just look at the Catholic Church, all the child molestation cases, the homosexuality problems in the church. I mean, if you look at that and you say Christianity is really in a bad state, it is. But are the teachings of Christ in a bad state? No, they don't touch the teachings. You have a moment of crisis. Find out what that crisis is about. Maybe this is Custer's last stand for you. Your ego's saying, I'm pulling out all the stops. I am going to try to get this girl to turn around and head right back to me. All this spiritual stuff is nonsense. Look at these people. They're all failed human beings. They say one thing out of their mouth and they do something different. Don't trust them. Logically speaking, with your mind, your ego is absolutely right. But there's something in the teachings, not about being a vegetarian, and certainly not the guilt trips. If you don't become a vegetarian, you can't wake up. Listen to the teachings about love, humility, peace. The underline of whether it's Shivananda, whether it's Hindu, because I don't know enough about Shivananda to talk directly, whether it's Buddhism, whether it's Christianity, the core of the teachings were love thy neighbor as yourself. Be in service. 'Tis better to give than to receive. Don't harm others. Right? Those are kind of when you boil it all, when the water vapor all disappears, right? What's left is those teachings. And they're really, we can wrap them all up and say, you are love, give love, be love, be love. There's a wonderful saying in Non-Dualism, one of the great teachers said, the questioner was saying, what do I do? My life is a mess, I don't know which choices are the right choices. And he went on and on and on, and the teacher said, love, and then do whatever you want. Meaning, if you come from love, you'll make good choices. Osho lost that a lot. There's no question that he had some awakenings. Was he a fully awakened being? Probably not. And remember what I said in the beginning is even when you become awakened, you still have your human attributes that you still need to work on. Osho had a lot of them he needed to work on. And he had so much adulation, so many adoring disciples. Wow, it was really difficult for him to work on all that stuff because they were reinforcing it all the time. He can do no wrong. It doesn't take away. He said some things that I don't agree with. And when I really look at them, they don't come from love. They come from somewhere else. Where else, there's either love or there's ego. If they didn't come from love, they came from ego. There are a lot of them. And what I do is when I hear his teachings that make sense to me, I look for validation. What other great teachers said the same thing? A lot of the stuff that Osho talked about, I've never heard any other except a few really egotistical teachers talking about. But the essential stuff they all said, including some that I would say, historically speaking, either they were the best magicians or they were free of most of the human conditions. Ramana Maharshi, all over the world, people said, we saw no personality in him. He was so simple. And by the way, he never wanted disciples. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If there's something that Osho says that fundamentally, deep down in you resonates, hang on. Just get rid of the bullshit. Get rid of the ego, get rid of the stuff that you say, ooh. When he says that, something in me goes, no. Get rid of it. And if if you still have a problem with Osho, stop listening to Osho. Flushing down the toilet. Find another teacher who resonates with you. There are tons of them. Read some of Ramana Maharshi's teachings. Read. I think I gave you a list of some of the teachers that I've talked about. Listen to those guys. You'll find a lot of them who really come from a place with higher humility, with limited egocentric stuff. They still have the attributes, but they've mastered them better. The guy, I don't remember his name now, who created Shivananda Yoga. He said sexual abuse is a very common subject, by the way, isn't it? Through a lot of these masters. I think because they haven't dealt with, what happens is they have some awakenings. And they haven't dealt with, this is what they call spiritual bypassing. Because they think, oh, I'm awake now, I don't have to pay attention to my physical attributes. It's not true. You still have to deal with your ego, because you can't get rid of it. You have to function with it. Right? They have some awakening, but they don't handle their ego weaknesses, their susceptibility to those physical attributes. And what is the most powerful thing that can destroy this awakening? You know what it is? It's a 3-letter word. It's sex. It's the easiest way to drown out, to use those remaining attributes in a way that destroy the beautiful teachings. It's the monster that consumes the person. It never consumes the teachings. That's why I say, if you find those that really resonate with you, chances are those are the really, for you guys who are already in touch with that heart center, that are already doing the work. Some people I wouldn't tell this to. For you, I'd be happy to share this. Don't let the sex, the ego, destroy the beauty. They can't. They can only touch it, destroy it in your mind. That's why I share with you, even when you wake up, you still have to deal with your physical attributes. Does it make you a perfect human being overnight? You say, aha, and now I'm perfect? No. You're going to wake up in the morning and you're going to be confronted with life, and you're going to go to your memories. You're going to go to your habits. There's no surprise that the biggest problem in the spiritual world is sex. Inappropriate use of sex. Sex can be very spiritual, right? But the abuse of sex is the #1 cause why people give up their seeking, either through their addiction to sex themselves Or they hear stories about sexual problems that teachers had, and then instead of looking at it and say, okay, I understand why they have this problem. They're human like I am. I'm going to forget about that. But I'm not going to forget about those core teachings that already resonated with me. See, and I suspect when they say, if you don't become a vegetarian, you're going to go to hell forever and ever and ever. That doesn't resonate with you, does it? There's something in it that says that's not true. Right? Am I right in that? But if I say, you're pure love, all there is in the world is love, and we just have forgotten it. Somehow, does that resonate with you? Yeah, it fits. So forget about whether you have to be vegetarian. That one didn't resonate with you. There was something, there was a warning flag in there anyways. But that there's only love, there's no warning flag for that. Except your ego, right? But deep down in you, you resonate. It said, wow, it's beautiful. The vegetarian thing, that's ugly. Okay. I don't hold on to the ugly. I listen, I appreciate the beautiful. I know the ugly has its place, but it doesn't have a place in my awareness. Does that make some sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think you mentioned about sex, and I think that's something to dive into too, because yeah, in all the spiritual teaching, they ask us to take away the sex part in order to maintain that level of awakening, and I'm questioning that too. So anyway, I've been very much suppressed for the past 2 years, and I'm very much of a very confined and strict and that goal-oriented person, and so I have very much huge control of everything that is around my personal life, from diet to sex life to desires, different kind of stuff. And so and I find it to be super manipulative. So yeah, I definitely, there are teachings that are very much, I find it to be beautiful, and because I'm very idealist, and therefore that's why I resonate those things. And perhaps I'll have to learn how to detach from this idea of perfectionism and idealistic thing and beautiful things that I only want to hear, and to accept the ugliness of it.
Just put the perfection in its proper place. The perfection is who you really are. It's not your body and it's not your mind, nor is it anybody else's body and mind. But when the awakening to love, to awareness, whatever you want to call it, awareness is perfection. But your body, the life that your body and mind lead, if you look for perfection there, what is he? Looking for love in all the wrong places. You're looking for perfection in all the wrong places. And it's only because you don't know who you are. When you say, I'm a perfectionist, you're not a perfectionist. Your ego is a perfectionist. Just the fact that you say, I am a perfectionist, is evidence that you worship your ego.
It has to
You put your ego above your heart.
Your mind has to make sense of things, you know?
Yes.
Mind, it's hard to make sense of something that beyond the mind, but the mind, to get there, I have to make sense of it. And if it doesn't make sense, it's gonna just leave. And I can just say this moment, I am awakened, that's it. And I'm gonna go kill somebody else on the road, and I'm still awakened, but I can't do that.
What do you call, if you say, I'm a perfectionist, are you awake?
I'm perfectly awake. I'm aware of what I'm saying.
Okay, wait a minute, wait. Let's make a difference here. You are limited consciousness. We talked about this before. Observing your body and your mind doing things. I'm aware that I'm sitting in this chair. Does that make me awake? No. To be aware of who is aware that I'm sitting in this chair is what being awake is. The aware of being aware is perfect, okay? You, who wants to be a perfectionist, is not perfect. And this is, you want to show a great example of suffering, is you want to be perfect. And you can't be. There has never been a perfect human being walk on the planet. So what arrogance thinks that you can be perfect? The fact that you are the fact that you are a perfectionist means you can only suffer, because you'll never be perfect. But if you find out who you really are, which is not your body, your mind, your sensations, perceptions, thoughts, memories, feelings, if you find out who is behind all of that, first of all, you will find perfection, but you will also drop the idea of perfection. You won't need it. You just are. Anytime you're judging somebody, you're finding the imperfection in somebody, you are not an awakened human being. You are aware that you are here, that your body and your mind are here, but you've identified the real you with your body and mind. So you go around saying, yes, I'm perfectly aware. You're conscious of your body and mind and the apparent world. You've completely lost the awareness of your true nature. When you say I'm aware, first of all, there's a clue. All the great teachers would say, if you hear somebody say, I am aware, they're not aware. Because being aware, there is no I. There is no person to say, I am aware. It's a trick of the mind. But in the non-dual teachings, one of the key things is, if I say, come study with me, I am an aware person. I'm not aware, because in awareness, there is no I. There is no individual. It's so simple, and it's so easy to see the con, to see the lie. You know, Osho had no qualms about letting people think that he was aware, right? He wasn't aware, just the fact, look at him. The fact that he could even infer to you that he was aware said that he wasn't aware. It's what they call, it's a catch-22. The fact of saying I'm aware means you're not aware. You can't get out of it. Which is why the Chinese said, when I know, I don't know, I know. When I become humble, I'm closer to awareness than when I think I'm aware. All your conversation is incredibly, I mean, it's wonderful. I'm so happy that you're saying the things that you do, because it is the human experience. You are a wonderful, extroverted outlet for the human experience, for all of us to see and hear and say, yeah, that's me. I share those, I have those same thoughts and those same experiences. Thank you for bringing them, verbalizing them. It's wonderful that you're here sharing them.
Thank you.
All those things you're saying from the not you, but you think it's you. You're suffering with the founder of Shivananda, who had the sexual problems, right? Muji had sexual problems. All kinds of great teachers had sexual problems. Let that part go. Who has a problem that they have a problem with sex? Is it the real you? No, the real you, first of all, understands it completely. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean you condone it. It doesn't mean it's okay. It means I'm not going to listen to you anymore. I'm going to go someplace else. Right? But I don't judge. I love the awareness that shined through Osho. I don't have to like Osho. Some things that came through Osho were not the awareness shining up. They were very dark psychological things. I don't have to like those dark psychological things, but those things that resonated with you, that you thought were very powerful, that made your heart, you could feel this shift. Love those. And Osho is no more real than you are from a body and a mind. In fact, if you see, your work is not about changing Osho and about finding and exposing all the teachers who were fake teachers who had sexual problems or some other kind of problem, violent problems, right? Your work is to go inside and say, who am I? Who in the hell am I to be judging these people? Not from a negative standpoint, just say, where is all that coming from? I know in my heart, I just want to love people. Why can't I? Why do I judge them all day long? Find out who is the loving person and who's the not loving person. The not loving judgmental person is not you. That's just how you show up in the world, because the humble awareness can't shine. You are the vehicle for awareness to shine. If you put the sunglasses on, if you don't let anybody see deep into your eyes, you are preventing awareness from shining as it would through you. Your judgment is just preventing the real you from being exposed, from showing up.
That's what I meant by I will be able to get through this through rewriting and listening to your teaching, and I'm able to generate the self-talk to forgive the big teachers. But I'm in this body and I'm acknowledging that I'm hurt.
Yeah, stop right now, okay? You said, I'm in this body and I'm hurt, right? Who is saying I'm in this body? It's your mind. You have had probably 99.9% of your experiences about, oh, I know who I am now, are happening in your mind. Something has happened for you to keep going. Some true awareness of being aware has happened in your life. And that's what keeps you on this path. That's what will, if that exists in you and you see it, that will be the light that burns off all the darkness like the Oshos of the world. If that's completely lost in this lifetime, you'll just hate Osho for the rest of your life. You already know you don't really want to do that. That's the awareness that's aware of you suffering from Osho and his behaviors is the shining light that will get you through this. Osho, Muji, Reverend Moon, all of these characters, right? Just like in Hindu mythology, they all represent aspects of you, the not you, the mind and the ego. If you can't make peace with them, you can't make peace with yourself. And you can never make peace with them if you haven't made peace with yourself. So forget about them and find out, remind yourself, and when you say, I know I should be better, but I hate Muji, right? The I that's saying both of those statements is your mind. It's not the real you. Find out who that real you is. And the best way that I know is through non-dualism. The direct path of going right inside and saying, skip the bullshit. Who am I? Without that, the chance of you coming to peace with Osho, what you'll do is you'll disconnect. And the sad part is you will disconnect from the teachings. Osho died. The teachings are still alive. But when you disconnect from Osho without that understanding, you're trying to disconnect from the teachings too. And that's suffering. Find out where that thought, when you say I'm a perfectionist, when you say I don't like Osho, I don't like people who abuse people through sex, whatever it is, right? There's always an I at the beginning of that. That I is not the I that we're talking about in non-dualism. All of those I's reside within your mind, and they're not the real you. And if you try to analyze this to come up with a solution, you won't get there because you're using the mind to analyze the mind. This is why they teach about meditation. What they're teaching about is silence, stillness, and that's not the outside world. You know, you can have a boombox behind you blasting out reggae music, and that's not the silence they're talking about. Every time you say, I'm a perfectionist, I don't like Osho, I don't like people with sexual abuse, I love horses, I love Gandhi, I don't like my mom's cooking, I love this, I wish my boyfriend was different. And all of those, right, are all thoughts of the mind. Not one of them come from the real you. Not one of them even belong to you. All of those say, I have a problem with something in the world. Awareness has no problem with anything. So if you find yourself having problems, struggles, disagreements, misunderstandings, anger, jealousy, envy, greed, every one of those is coming from your thinking mind. You can try to fix them one by one. That's okay. You can go to therapy. You can quit on all the spiritual shit and just say, I'm going to live my life the way that I think I should live it. Right? They'll still come back to haunt you. You want to be free of the mind through the mind. Can't be done. Silence. You can teach yourself silence. It's very difficult. But find a teacher who says, I don't want you hanging around any longer than you need to learn how to be silent. I don't want you to hang around any longer than to learn the difference between the finger pointing to the moon and the moon. I don't want you to hang around any longer than for you to just pick up the goddamn food and eat it instead of reading the menu all day long trying to decide. Find that person. And if you think that they're skilled in helping you find that silence, you're on the right track. You need to go.
Yes.
Does that make sense to you? Can you see? All of your discussion today is absolutely beautiful. I thank you so much. It's really relevant. Every one of us can relate to it, I believe. Certainly I can, and I've seen a couple other people shaking their heads, right? The value of a group like this is wisdom is showing up through you in your struggles, in your angers. They're the best teacher. Behind your greatest weakness is your greatest strength. The fact that you're angry about it is telling you, look deeper. If you get behind it, if you go deeper, like the Tao, right? The Taoist wheel with the white and the black and the white. If you go far enough, you find the opposite. Right? Same thing. If you go deep enough into the darkness, which is what maybe you're facing right now with all your frustration, with all this stuff, with Shivananda, with Osho, with whatever else it is, right? You're seeing, for the first time, you're seeing the darkness. Be silent. Don't listen to them more. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is be quiet and observe the darkness. And if you go really deep into you, there's a very good chance, I believe, you're wise enough already. You're far enough already. The white part will appear. And when it does, you release all the darkness. You accept that everybody's going to be screwed up, just like you accept that your behavior sometimes, even though you have this awakening, you're still going to look at yourself and say, wow, I can't believe I did that. You're going to spend the rest of your life working on all your attributes. What Myers-Briggs talked about, right? And your memories. Right? You'll always work on that, but you're going to have a really good place to work from. Go into that silence.
Thank you, Ki.
You're very welcome.